to read Umineko no Naku Koro ni. Yeah, I think we'll make this one extra long today because, I can't really go outside my room to play. You know, I say things like that even though I'm an adult. I don't know. Okay? I forgot to do something. No! Frick! God damn it! Oh, I fucked up. Now we're gonna have this stupid yellow border. Okay. You know what? We're gonna live with it. These things happen. We're gonna have this stupid yellow border, and I'm sorry. It was my fault. Okay. Now let's read. The strange letters of that witch I entrusted to Maria wiped all the memories of dinner from our minds. Maria was repeatedly barraged with questions by Aunt Rosa and the other parents, and became increasingly ill-tempered when they refused to believe her. If the kids tried to butt in, they'd probably ignore us. Our parents were all stirred up, firing back and forth about the gold and the distribution of the assets, completely forgetting that we were even there. I'd already guessed they'd been talking like this in the shadows, but I hadn't thought that they'd be so blunt. It gave all of us kids a considerable shock. From what we could overhear, all the parents wanted more money as soon as possible. Back and forth about grandfather's inheritance. Back and forth about the distribution of the gold if it was found. About advance payment in cash. It was so despicable I could hardly bear to watch, even though one of them was my father. It looked like Jessica felt the same way. We left our seats without being asked to and went to hang out somewhere else, well, away from our parents. I get it. Now I totally see why grandfather hates coming down for meals. I'm so disillusioned with our parents right now. All that about money and the inheritance. How can they act like that right out in the open? Well, I'm already pretty completely disillusioned with my old bastard. There's no way I could think any worse of him. That's exactly the same for me. Still, that freaking shocked me. Shocked me to the core. Jessica looked down on the floor, irritated. She was always talking about how bad her parents were, but maybe she hadn't really felt that way deep inside. The depths of Jessica's shock made that clear. You're all minors being supported by your parents, so you might not understand, but getting money is neither a simple nor a pretty thing. I won't try to force you to understand right now, since you're still kids. But even so, I want you to realize that your parents are just doing their best in their own way. Oh, great. Yours has gotten all mature. George, I know you're working hard as a full-fledged member of society, but does that mean you turn into a shameless, greedy vulture like our parents whenever you start talking about money and assets? If it were only for my own benefit, then no. I wouldn't want to do that. However, when your family and your employees and your subordinates from other families are counting on you, there are times when you must fight. I hate that kind of fight. That back and forth about grandfather's inheritance just makes me want to puke. Jessica pretended to spit violently, and a harsh reaction made the depths of her pain very clear. Let's stop talking about this. All this about grandfather's hidden gold, property, and inheritance is our parents' problem, not ours. I agree. At the very least, I think children have a duty to be considerate and stay out of their parents' way when they're talking together. Sounds pretty boring. Everyone knows the phrase, adults are filthy, but we had now seen that for ourselves. That'd really give us a considerable shock. George was pretty much an adult. I'd already been disillusioned with my dad, so the shock wasn't that big for us. But Jessica seemed to be taking it hard. Apparently, she received a bigger blow than I had thought. She always talks badly about her parents, but it looks like she hasn't changed at all on the inside. Even now, she's still a pure-hearted, delicate person who can't doubt others. I'm sure she respected her parents as much as anyone else does. And their parents started raging about, going, money, money, inheritance, inheritance, my money, right in front of all the other parents and children. It's no surprise she received such a shock from hearing that. Jessica, please don't start hating your mother and father. I won't ask you to understand them, but at least don't hate them. I get it. Just leave me alone for a bit. It's 6 years ago, I would have kept chaunting Jessica even after she got all dejected. But I guess I really have grown over the last 6 years. I realized it'd be better to leave Jessica alone right now. Jessica looked away sulkingly and left the parlor. She probably wanted to be alone for a while. I could do nothing but wordlessly watch her back as she left. Come to think of it, I wonder where Maria left. She's probably pouting in front of the portrait. Maria truly looked up to witches, and she expected that coming in direct contact with Beatrice and receiving the letter as proof would surprise everyone and make them happy. However, the adults had doubted its authenticity, thoroughly bombarding Maria with questions and refusing to accept her story. Even for me, it wasn't hard to imagine how much that must have hurt Maria. We couldn't speak to Maria or Jessica. In the end, George and I just abandoned ourselves to the sound of the rain falling in the dark night. I wonder what's happening with that typhoon. Maybe there's something about on the news. George started walking over to the corner of the parlor where the television was. The aunt called me over, and I really couldn't care less where the typhoon was on the sea right now. So without going over to the television, I loitered around the window. The wind hasn't picked up that much here, but I wonder if it's horrible over the sea. I did hear about a severe storm warning on the weather report. Ah, Kyrie! I take those big talks between the adults are going smoothly, yeah? She seemed to catch the sarcasm. Kyrie shrugged. I wonder if that stomachache of the discussion will continue all night. It's not going to be fun. Well then, please enjoy playing vultures to grandfather's property as much as you like. I feel sick. I agree with you on that. If I could just slip away like you, I'd do it. Unfortunately, I can't. Even if I'm not allowed to speak. These spouses have it pretty rough too. Kyrie took a deep breath, smiling bitterly. That's right. They probably wouldn't let Kyrie speak since she only married into the family. Still, as Dad's partner, she had no choice but to stay by his side and support him. She probably had to bear the full brunt of this mental pressure much more than me. I wasn't going to apologize, but realizing I'd spoken too harshly, I cut the sarcasm for the time being. So, how does it look? Are they still stuck on the topic of the mysterious witch Beatrice? More or less. Those 4 siblings are always piling up secret agreements when they come together to discuss the division of grandfather's inheritance. They're saying some unknown 5th person has appeared and is trying to make things even more complicated, and there's no way that'll make for a peaceful conversation. Just when you think they're snarling at each other, they'll set up a common front. Natsuhi's not only the one getting headaches. On the one hand, they all want a large portion than the other siblings, so they're all rivals. But on the other hand, they don't want 1 yen to be snatched up by anyone else other than the siblings, so they're also all allies. I haven't been told the details, but the siblings are apparently discussing how to protect their shares under various situations, setting up ceasefire agreements and rules to prevent anyone from getting an unfair advantage, even preparing to resort to legal action if absolutely necessary. If they would go this far to preserve their shares, so beyond discussing that you just have to acknowledge their resilience. So basically, Beatrice is like an assassin sent by grandfather, and he probably wanted to scare the hell out of his children for they're talking about the inheritance without him. Who's this Beatrice, I wonder? If everything she claims is true, then she's a mysterious figure that no one had knew about until today. She also knows about grandfather's hidden gold. On top of that, she was even trusted with the head's ring. She must truly have been trusted by him. Well, obviously, I don't think she's a witch riding around on a magic broom, but there's no doubt that she's a mysterious person who's earned the right to be called a witch. If only Maria would go into more detail about that. Everyone's been smothering her, even though she's just a little girl. They really scared her. Some things they might have asked now can't be asked. I wonder if those people have never even read The North Wind and the Sun. What we do know is Maria received a letter from a person who took the name Beatrice. She sure is shy for a mystery person, entrusting Maria with a letter and hiding away even now when she could have just appeared and talked to us directly. Hey, Battler. Do you really think a person called Beatrice actually exists? Who knows? It doesn't really seem like a false name. Like, she's grandfather's representative, so she was given permission to take the name of the witch from his delusions? No, that's not what I meant. Right now, there's a total of 18 people here on Rokinjima. Do you think there's a 19th person? Are there really a full 18 people on the island right now? Consider wondering about that. I began counting on my fingers, and it really did come out that many. Do I think that a 19th person exists? What exactly do you mean? Just what I said. The person who lent Maria that umbrella supposedly wasn't one of us 18. So, isn't it natural to assume that a 19th person exists, and that this person lent Maria the umbrella? Well, yeah, it sure does look like that. Then, where exactly is this person now? At the very least, she must have been on the island when it started raining. And ever since that time, the weather has grown progressively worse, so taking a boat out would be pretty much impossible. In that case, that person must still be on the island, hiding from the rain somewhere, without any of us spotting her. True. We've been all randomly prowling around on the mansion and the guest house, but no one has bumped into a 19th person. But this island's huge, and there might be some places to take shelter from the rain other than the mansion and the guest house. About this time, I began to realize what direction Kyrie's suspicions were taking us in. Kyrie was denying that a 19th person existed. Beatrice was one of us 18. In other words, she thought someone we knew well was tricking us. If Beatrice is who she claims, she'd surely be the most honored of guests, the most honored of confidants trusted by Grandfather. There's no way Grandfather wouldn't give that kind of person a warm reception. She would have surely been ushered into the mansion. However, we haven't seen anyone like that. Wait a sec. Isn't this a line of reasoning a bit too hasty? Sure, no one spotted this person, but that doesn't mean you can't deny the possibility that a 19th person exists, right? Maybe for some reason they landed on the island stealthily and have been hiding ever since. It's what they call a devil's proof. It's easy to prove that something exists. If this Beatrice appears in front of all of us and says hi, then it's settled. But it's impossible to prove that there's no 19th person. Yes. Battler, your way of reasoning isn't bad. In our current situation, there isn't enough information to either accept or deny that a 19th person exists. But if you spin the chessboard around and think that way, you can deny the existence of a 19th person with near calamity, certainty. Oh my god, I messed up. I'm so sorry. Spin the chessboard around was one of Kyrie's favorite phrases. I remember they used to translate it as turning over the chessboard or turning the chessboard around. I've been influenced by those words and used them myself from time to time. When you get stuck trying to find a move in chess or shogi, then by spinning the board around and looking at everything from your opponent's standpoint, you can see a strategy that'll give you an upper hand. Oh man, has anybody seen Umineko parody fandom where like she's like, yes, I'm trademarking that. Anyone remember Nio, dude? I don't know, I'm just saying it. Nobody has to respond if no one's watching, I don't care. I'm just bored. And I just like reading. It means turning things around and putting yourself in the opponent's shoes. You see? Let's say that a 19th person called Beatrice actually exists. That person must have managed, without being seen by anyone, to stealthily arrive on the island and remain hidden ever since. Maybe they had some reason, okay? In that case, why'd they go to the trouble of appearing before Maria and handing her the letter? It really was a contradiction. They had some reason for hiding themselves. They should have stayed hidden the whole time. But even so, they had appeared openly in front of Maria. Then... wait, Maria said it herself. She said that a witch made her a messenger. Maybe that's because Maria is the youngest and looked the most obedient. Why would they need a messenger? If they just wanted a letter delivered to the family conference, they could have mailed it. If they mailed it to each of the 4 siblings, no one would be able to ignore it. There was no need for this person to carry it themselves and secretly deliver it by hand. Yeah, that does sound pretty weird. In the first place, if Beatrice existed and wanted to make her presence known to everyone, then she could have openly presented herself to all of us. Despite that, she chose the vague method of appearing through a little girl called Maria, and only gave us a vague impression of who she was. Contradiction. Let's go a little deeper, shall we? She appeared from Maria, trying to give us the impression that a 19th person existed, and yet she still hasn't appeared before us, and is hiding somewhere at this very moment. Think about those contradictions. You've got to keep these things in mind when you spin the chessboard around. In short, if a person wants to leave us with the impression that Beatrice exists as a 19th person, what might their goal be? If this person wanted to hide, then they wouldn't have made their presence known. And if they wanted to show themselves, they wouldn't have just used a roundabout approach of entrusting someone with a letter. Which means... it's simple. Beatrice is one of the 18 people. That's why they want to create an illusion that there are more than 18 people. The 19th person was revealed so spectacularly. If someone were to profit from this, it wouldn't be some 19th person in hiding. It'd be one of the original 18 people. Of course, this reasoning is full of holes. If you turn over even a few of its premises, it would simply fall apart. But I'm almost completely certain it's correct. This is starting to feel pretty creepy. Someone lent Maria the umbrella and handed her the letter. Supposedly none of the 18 did this, and yet Beatrice was hidden among those 18. What was this person planning, hiding their true form and pretending to be Beatrice? I suspected it might have been Maria play acting, but the contents of the message was extremely complicated. It's hard to imagine Maria writing that herself. However, I can't deny the possibility that Maria is working together with someone. Wait a sec. Maria's a 9-year-old kid, right? What could she possibly be planning with who? And what about her straightforward, overly honest, obedient nature? Yes. I also understand what kind of a person Maria is. But that's exactly why I think it's possible. The girl's a dreamer who can't help but look up to blindly accept the existence of witches. So if a person appeared in front of her and claimed to be the witch Beatrice, Maria would happily swallow it up, I think. So you're saying someone disguised themselves wearing a fancy dress from the portrait, tricking Maria wouldn't be that hard. Of course, with that reasoning, all of us women would become primary suspects. Anyway, who did Maria encounter? Learning the details of that question would be the best key to solving this riddle. But this key has been firmly locked away inside Maria's heart. Everyone denied the existence of a witch without listening to her, barraging her with too many questions about who Beatrice actually was. She probably won't open her heart to the adults now. In the dim hall in front of the portrait of Beatrice, Maria was sobbing.
No one believes I met Beatrice. Even though I showed them the letter Beatrice says they still don't believe.
Oh, poor Maria. I can't fake cry, I'm sorry. Anyway, Maria is holding the key. The key to whether Beatrice is one of the 18 or 19th person. Maria's stubborn, right? When that girl gets angry, it's pretty hard to make her feel better. Valor, I think a kid like you would be better at cheering her up than an adult like me. After she's feeling better, try asking. I know you don't care about all this back and forth about the inheritance, but don't you find this Western Mansion mystery situation exciting? Who in the world is this person who gave Maria the letter? Makes your intellectual curiosity ache. You're actually pretty tough considering you're still excited after being dragged through that endless money talk. Adults can be pretty amazing. I shrugged exasperately. But I did notice something. Kiri noticed how dejected I was after overhearing our parents' turbulent discussion. I was probably trying to clear the air. At the very least, I recovered enough to voice my complaints. She wasn't my real mother, so I never felt like calling her mom. But it did make me think she's a real adult. Hey, brats, so this is where you were. Kiri, you really took your time fixing your makeup, didn't you? Think I'll make that a habit of going out to touch up my makeup, too. I'm sorry. A woman's makeup takes a long time. So, how's the discussion been without me? I'm for sure everything was all peaceful and harmonious. Kiri poked the weak spot under my arm with her elbow. We decided to take a break to cool our heads a little. Looks like we'll be at it all night. Makes me want to cry. His way of talking hadn't changed, but he couldn't completely hide his fatigue. I couldn't say I was sympathetic, but he looked pitiful compared to his normal energetic self. Still, that rain is just awful. I really don't want to go back to the guest house. Looks like Natsu set up things so that we could spend the night here in the mansion. What'll we do? We don't need to decide until you're done, right? If you run low on energy that you can't return to our room, then we can take them up on their offer. Hey, you're right. We can think about it later. What about you, Battler? If I stayed, I'd just get in the way. I'll be nice and go back over there. I see. You back soon? I don't know. It'd be pretty lonely to head back by myself. I'll gather all the kids and we'll head out. Okay. You gotta do that. Also, Battler, you won't be going to sleep that easily tonight, right? Yeah, I'll probably be up talking with the cousins. Sounds like we'll be up all night. Is there a problem with that? I see. And if you're still awake when the adults' discussion is over, I want to have a little talk as a family. Oh, what? That doesn't sound like you. Apparently, Kyrie was thinking the same thing. What are you talking about? She asked him in a small voice. It looked like Kyrie didn't have a clue what Dad meant either. I also want to talk to you about it, Kyrie. I'll tell you later, so don't ask now, please. I don't know anyone who neglects the concept of family as much as this old bastard, and now he's saying that we're gonna have a talk as a family? Both Kyrie and I couldn't help but get wide-eyed. Don't look so terrified. I'm the one who should be terrified, after all. At that point, he swallowed his words for an instant, even though putting on the airs of importance wasn't much like my dad. You're freaking me out, Dad. Everyone in our family's gathered here now, right? Don't make a big deal out of it and spit it out. Tonight, I will probably be killed. A huge crash of thunder. Must have been really close. Dad's expression, brightly illuminated by the lightning, was burned into my eyes. Dad's face, which always looked so sure of itself, which always wore a taunting expression, was strangely frail in a way I couldn't really explain. It was so worn out that he looked like a different person. What? What are you talking about? That doesn't sound like you! I agree. What happened? You look so timid all of a sudden. It's not like you. I'm gonna go fix my makeup too. Don't follow me. Dad turned away weakly. After that, only Kyrie and I were left, still wide-eyed. What did he say? Tonight he'll be killed? You don't think that mysterious letter scared him, do you? He's been watching way too many serial killer movies. Kyrie didn't answer my light-hearted words and continued to stare at my dad's disappearing back. Battler, when you told Rudolph to spill the beans right away, he left without telling us anything. Even though he said he had something to say to both of us, he didn't answer you. Why? Spin the chessboard around, and what do you see? Well, when he said he wanted to talk but then couldn't, that's a contradiction. What can you see by looking from Dad's perspective? Yes, I can see something. He wants to talk about something. However, he doesn't have the courage to bring it up. So he actually means chase after me, talk to me, and ask me about it yourself. By saying don't follow me, he actually means the opposite. He actually means follow me and force me to answer. Seriously, what a spoiled brat. What? Can you really call that reasoning? That's ridiculous. Can a great private and police detectives deduce the emotions and feelings between men and women? They can't, right? Figuring out the feelings of the opposite sex is an even more advanced art than exposing the tricks in difficult crime cases. If you ask me, romance novels have much deeper mysteries than masterpiece mystery novels. I see. Is that how it is? I'll stand alongside that spoiled brat. He normally loves to bluff, but tonight he's completely tired out from that heated discussion. He probably wants someone to lean on at the moment, and responding to that need is the role of his partner. Ha! Sounds passionate. Then I'll leave that old bastard in your hands. Yes, leave it to me. I called out to Kyrie, departing back. What? I wanted to say thanks. Thanks to you, my gloomy mood's cleared up a lot. That's good. Communication's important. After answering with a wink, Kyrie followed after Dad. Alright. Natsuhi could be seen in the dimly lit hallway. Now and then thunder would crash, but this had no effect on Natsuhi's expression. She looked completely worn out. The discussion that had just taken place between the relatives in the dining hall was repeating itself inside Natsuhi's mind. Beatrice has proclaimed that in addition to the gold, all the inheritance and property of the Ushirimiya family would be given to the person who could solve the riddle. In other words, she'd planned to undermine the absolute guarantee that Kraus, as the oldest brother, had to succeed the family head. Originally, the other siblings had absolutely no chance to inherit the headship. To them, this proposal by Beatrice was extremely desirable. It was obvious that they would accept it. There was no need to play some clumsy detective game. Natsuhi knew that this so-called 19th person Beatrice couldn't exist. Naturally, Beatrice was nothing more than a fictional character used to pass a message that Kinzo had written himself. As proof, Kinzo had remained severely neutral as of that letter's authenticity. He was completely ignoring these reckless claims that he shouldn't be able to ignore, and that he had given up the head's ring. In short, Kinzo had wordlessly admitted that the letter held his own message. Most likely, one of the servants had given Maria the letter. Kinzo had probably worked out an elaborate plan where the dress for the portrait would be prepared, and someone, probably Shannon, would be made to wear it and deliver the letter on the umbrella. By doing that, he could make it seem like the witch from the portrait actually existed. No, if anything, that alone was proof that Kinzo was behind all of this. In that case, it was the same as Kinzo trying to butt in on one of the siblings' private discussion. Then Kinzo, by announcing that he'd get everything to the person who solved the riddle, could weaken Kraus's overwhelming advantage. Now it was certain, Kinzo had eavesdropped on the siblings' discussion on the parlor earlier that day, so he had known how Kraus had staved off the attack by the other three. And to make the scales of the battle go back into balance, he had sent out this strange letter, which benefited Kraus's rivals. He was now trying to push this crazy theory so that Rosa, who had a weak position among the siblings because of her age, would join with 8 by Rudolph. Then, with a 3-to-1 advantage, they'd be able to overwhelm Kraus yet again, making their ridiculous theories get accepted by force. In doing so, he gave them that power to resettle what had once been a nearly decided conflict. They had now started repeatedly pressing Kraus to pay them in a large amount of money. Used in the condition that all the siblings would guarantee Kraus's position as his successor, talk about advance payments was being brought up again, despite having been rejected once. Of course, even without the story of the hidden gold, the Ushirimiya family's store of wealth was vast. That store of wealth alone was more than enough. Even though the hidden gold was buried forever along with Kinzo's death, there'd be more than enough to satisfy. Therefore, even if they weren't that interested in the gold itself, Kinzo had managed to instill a lifelong fear that, on the off chance that someone found the gold, that person would be granted the headship. This kind of Achilles' heel would definitely be taken advantage of someone sooner or later. The only person with this fatal weakness was the successor, Kraus. The other siblings had found. No, they had been told by Kinzo about something that only Kraus could lose, and they had thoroughly taken advantage of that. Natsuhi is Kraus's only ally in his painful position, and his wife wanted to fight alongside him. She kept trying to explain to him the existence of the gold itself was a farce, and there was no need for him to compromise. Kraus had always told Natsuhi. He told all the siblings. He always said that the hidden gold was nothing more than an illusion created by Kinzo. Therefore, Natsuhi believed it as his wife had supported her husband on that foundation. Even so, Natsuhi's words didn't reach Kraus. Even though Natsuhi had fought so hard and had lent all her strength, he continued to fight by himself and was trying to compromise with the other 3 siblings. Natsuhi sadly and weakly wondered why she could not be of use to him and started getting angry. It happened when everyone decided to take a short break to cool their heads. Natsuhi flared up against Kraus. Enraged, she asked why she could not be useful to him. He then told her that he wanted to talk to her about something and invited her into a room that she was normally not allowed to enter. That room had been sealed with a heavy-looking padlock, and just looking at it had given her an uncomfortable feeling. There's no need for you to worry about anything said by those three, or even the suspicious person who calls herself Beatrice. After all, the gold is just a ruse created by Father. There's no way something like that could be found. Your position as a successor is a solid fact. What are you afraid of? Kraus removed the padlock from the door. He then motioned for Natsuhi to enter. Enter. What is this? There's something I want you to see. I've never shown you this before. Natsuhi timidly opened the door with a dubious expression on her face. It was pitch black. She searched for a switch to turn on the lights, but since this was her first time in the room, she didn't know where it was. Kraus entered behind her, pushing her in. When he closed the door before turning on the lights, the two were swallowed up by the darkness. Only the sound of Kraus locking the door rang out through the dark. What are you doing? The lights. I'm turning them on now. Wait. Just as he said that, when Kraus pushed the switch on the wall, a flickering light turned on and lit up the room. That is... Natsuhi had her breath taken away. The room had no windows, and at a glance it appeared to be empty. In the middle of the room, a small round table had been set, the lights brightened only by that table, as if it were leading a part in a play. On top of the table, a red tablecloth of elaborate design had been set out and covered with dust. On top of that, something about the size of a grown man's arm had been set down. That something took Natsuhi's breath away. It was a gold ingot of incredible purity. Without this, no one would have believed in the legend of the gold. It was an ingot of solid gold. Even in the faint light, it sparkled with a noble and dignified glint. This is not a proper ingot. I don't even know whether it was cast inside or outside the country. It took a high level of skill to make the purest of solid gold ingots. And in order to verify that purity, it was standard to have an original foundry and the name of the bank that guaranteed it imprinted on the gold. However, this ingot did not have that kind of seal. This mysterious gold bar had come from an unknown foundry. Look here! There's nothing to be afraid of. It's just a bar of gold. Natsuhi, following Kraus's words, timidly approached the ingot. Right here, Kraus pointed at the surface of the ingot. Natsuhi concentrated on that section. Right there was the thin imprint of the one-winged eagle crest. Natsuhi's breath was taken away once again. That's right. This is the legendary ingot that Father said he received from the witch that the president of Maruso witnessed and was allowed to select at random to take back with him. That gained the trust of the fixers of the business world. I had to use all that possible means to find it. I found it before the other siblings could. How could... Then... the legend of Father's gold is... It actually exists. The gold that Ushiro Miyakinzo received from Beatrice actually exists. Impossible! So, it really does exist. Natsuhi was shocked. Kraus had always said that Kinzo's gold was just a fabrication, so she had believed it as his wife. However, the reality was different, since he had definite proof. It had been more certain than any of the other siblings the legend of the gold was true. Because of this, Kraus was deeply frightened at the possibility that someone other than himself would find the gold he failed to find, costing him everything. But to Natsuhi, this truth was more than enough to split open her heart. She had thought that as Kraus's wife, she would be his closest confidant, which is why she had selflessly supported him. And yet, he had hid this fact from her until today. Why? Have I been so undeserving of your trust? That has never been my intention. There was simply no need to tell you. Is that all a wife means to you? Calm down. Becoming passionate easily is one of your bad habits. You're the one who's making me like that, aren't you? I've been supporting you as a wife ever since I married into this family. For your sake, I threw away my family I was born into. I've been offering up my heart and my body to serve you. And in return, this is what I get? How could you? Oscar Mace, looking annoyed. His expression effectively communicated how much he disliked this part of Natsuki, even if he didn't say it out loud. It doesn't look like I'll be of any use to you anymore. That's fine. I can resolve the troubles with the siblings by myself. I don't need your help. That's wrong! This is the Ushiromiya family's problem! It's true that I'm not permitted to wear the family crest on my body, but I am still your wife! Even so, are you saying that I'm not capable of helping you? Are you? I especially wouldn't want to risk you getting involved. It would probably make your headaches even worse than they are now. Take a rest for today. The siblings will deal with the siblings' problems. It has nothing to do with you. That is all. Sometimes I don't like Kraus. I understand where he's coming from now, but I remember he pissed me off. A dull headache tormented Natsuki. No matter what medicine she took, no matter what scent she burned, it wouldn't heal. In fact, simply wandering alone through the dark corridors and listening to the sound of the rain seemed to be a better cure. I may be Natsuki, but I was never Ushiromiya Natsuki. I've been despised and treated as a borrowed womb, and insulted when I couldn't even fill that role. Even so, I have tried to perform duties as a wife, but now even my husband has rejected me. I've done my best raising my daughter as if it were the last job left to me. However, I had no release from my anger and sadness, and they caused me to subconsciously strain that relationship too. Because I've been excessively strict in Jessica's education, she dislikes me thoroughly. She despises me for having no interest in anything but grades. There is no longer anything I can do for the Ushiromiya family. No. That's no good. Despite it all, I must help my husband and beat back the schemes of the other greedy siblings. The family head won't be around much longer. Eventually Kraus will succeed the head, and the next successor will be Jessica. Strictly speaking, the man who enters the family by marrying Jessica will become the next head, but it all comes to the same thing. I have to make Jessica an excellent successor, whom everyone will accept as worthy to take over the Ushiromiya family. In the days to come, that greedy Ushiromiya Eva will probably be plotting to find some fault with the main family. If all goes as she plans, Jessica will be dragged down from succession, with George set up in her place. It is regrettable, but George is a man, and even more has matured as a person. Compared to Jessica, who is right in the middle of her rebellious period, whose grades are slightly below average, it can be seen at a glance who's more fit to succeed the head. So in order to secure Jessica's position, I need to turn her into an excellent person. After doing that, I want to find her an excellent husband worthy of an excellent person she will have become. A wonderful man who will truly accept Jessica and stay with her through all life's joys and sorrows. Was Natsuki trying to entrust her daughter with fulfilling some desire of her own? Natsuki thought back to the days she had no choice but to marry into the Ushiromiya family because of that unavoidable fate. She tried to block that from her memory. She had consciously forgotten it and had actively attended to the life that she'd been given as Ushiromiya Natsuki. And in so doing, she had built up a new life. But just now, it felt like all of that had been casually rejected. How should I think as I live my life? I do not know. Natsuhi helplessly rested her head against the glass window. The glass, which was cool thanks to the raindrops beating against it, felt somehow refreshing, even though it should have been emotionless. Right then, it seemed to be the only thing that could understand Natsuhi. At that point, even if someone had appeared, Natsuhi didn't intend to pay any attention to them. But she did pay attention, because it was her beloved daughter. Oh, it's you, Mom. What the heck are you doing in a place like this? Thought you were a ghost. Just like always, her words were rough, not at all like a girl's. Instinctively, words of rebuke rose to Natsuhi's throat. However, their strength gave out, and they didn't escape her lips. Jessica, forgive me, but my headache is awful. Please leave me be. I see. Jessica was seeing her mother in a position of feebleness for the first time, so she was considerably disconcerted. Until just now, she had been filled with contempt for all the parents, including her mother. But now those feelings had been completely swept away. Her mother is utterly exhausted. Space had wiped them all out. In its place, the words George had told her floated back up in her mind. Our parents are doing their best in their own way, and because their families are counting on them, they can't afford to keep everything pleasant and have a heavy responsibility to fight. Maybe her mother had been standing around in this dimly lit hallway because no one had tried to understand that in her. Jessica hated her mother, so she had no intention of speaking kindly to Natsuhi just because she was looking a bit frail. So when she attempted to speak kindly to her mother anyway, she had to clench her fists and gather up the words from deep in her heart. It sounds like you really got your hands full with that meeting thing. It has nothing to do with you. Please go somewhere else. Is your headache that bad? Should I go get some medicine? You don't have to trouble yourself. Please leave me alone. Natsuhi wasn't being cold. She just wanted her daughter to go far away so that she wouldn't have to bump against Natsuhi's own short temper. There was no chance that Jessica would realize this. Okay. Jessica hung her head, looking sad. Seeing that expression, Natsuhi recognized the kindness that Jessica was trying to muster. She gave her head a small shake to drive away her own unkind feelings. Then I'll leave. I'll be with the other cousins so I won't get in the way of the other adults. See you later. Wait there. She called Jessica, who was trying to leave, and looked lonely, to a stop. What? Thank you for being so considerate. It isn't good of me to go to sleep and leave you alone. Don't talk like that! You'll bring bad luck! I made you worry. I'm okay now. I will go. If I let my daughter see me like this feeble any longer, I'll only make her feel more uneasy. With that thought in mind, Natsuhi left Jessica with words of gratitude and made to depart. This time, Jessica called out to her mother's back. Natsuhi stopped and turned around, asking what business Jessica had with her. But Jessica herself didn't know why she'd stopped her mother. For a while, she smiled wryly, muttering to herself as she hesitated over what to say. She was poking around her pocket with her hand touched something and she took it out. Hey, Mom! I was given a charm today. What was it? A charm against magic? I'm pretty sure that you were supposed to hang it from your doorknob, I think. I forget. There's no point in me having it, so I'll let you take it. It was the scorpion charm that Maria had given her on the beach. Although she heard of its various effects from Maria, Jessica's mind had gone blank. She was just barely able to say even that much. Jessica, thinking that her mother probably wouldn't accept it anyway, immediately drew back the hand that she had stuck out, grasping the charm. So when Natsuhi came back to take it, she was extremely shocked. What is this? Some kind of prize toy? Well, I think it's something like that. I guess you wouldn't really expect a charm that looks like a toy to do anything. But her mother took the charm from where she grasped it in her hand. Thank you. I'll take good care of it. Sometime soon in exchange, Why do I give you a charm that was important to me when I was a child? It's not like that's why I gave it to you! Well... If you really say so... Then I will rest for now. My headache is awful. Try not to stay up too late. Sure. Natsui put the charm in her pocket and turned away. She then disappeared into the dark hall. Okay. I really love moments between them like that. Natsui is one of my favorite moms, even though I don't particularly agree with everything that she thinks. It seems the weather will be like this all day tomorrow after all. Dang, this makes the good weather we had earlier feel like a lie. George and I were killing time from the parlor television. At that point, Jessica returned. Her face was still blank, but it looked like she calmed down a bit after we'd seen her. Is Maria still in front of the portrait? Nope. She just came back and she's sleeping over there on the sofa. It's getting pretty late for her after all. Looking at the clock, I saw it was a little past 10 p.m. Even if we were planning to stay up all night, it was about time to head back to our room. Well, my mom didn't have a room prepared for us in the mansion. What'll we do? I'd rather head back to the guest house. Going by what we saw of our parents, I think it'd be better if we weren't in the mansion. I agree. Feels like they're telling us kids to mind our own business and stay out of their way. Let's be good little boys and girls and do that. As we were talking about this, Aunt Rosa came into the parlor. She was looking all over restlessly, probably trying to find Maria. Aunt Rosa, if you're looking for Maria, she's over there on the sofa. Thank you. My, she's out cold. We must move her to her bed. If you like, I'll carry her over to her bed. Thanks, that would be wonderful. Are you all heading back to the guest house? Or are you going to stay in the room Natsuki had prepared here? We were just talking about that. We just decided to head over to the guest house. I see. Then, can I ask you to take Maria with you? I feel much more reassured if she stayed with all of you cousins. Behind those words, she seemed to be concealing some regret that the adults, herself included, had deeply hurt Maria's feelings. Leave it at us, Aunt Rosa! After all, we do have an expert at covering Maria with us. Are you talking about me? I couldn't do it myself. We'll need everyone together. That's right! Valor, weren't you the one who hit it off with Maria when you were messing around earlier? As we said this, Aunt Rosa smiled, looking truly happy. Thank you, everyone. It looks like our meeting will last until very late. So, while I'm sorry to burden you like this, I'll be counting on all of you to take care of Maria. Hey, Maria, are you sound asleep? We're going back to the guest house. Maria muttered something indistinct, rolled over, and fell back asleep. It looked like she was sleeping deeply. She's really out cold. I'd hate to wake her. Right, I'll carry her. Alright. Maria's body was much lighter than it looked. I lifted her up and put her on George's back. It was raining hard outside, and Aniki couldn't hold an umbrella and carry Maria at the same time. It looked like Aunt Rosa would come with us as far as the guest house to help out. However, when she heard Uncle Krause's voice call out to her, she had no choice but to return. Now that's a problem. I have to go back now. Is everyone returning to the guest house? As we left the hallway on the entrance, the door to the servant room opened and Shannon stepped out. It's grown very dark, so please allow me to guide you. That would be great, Shannon. George is going to carry Maria here. Would you hold an umbrella for him? Yes, certainly. Shannon brought the umbrellas for each of us and a flashlight to guide the way. As we opened the front door, the downpour was quite terrific. It looked like we wouldn't have any time to take a pleasant walk and enjoy the nighttime rose garden. Aniki, is she too heavy? Want me to carry her? It's okay. I can at least carry Maria. I'm truly grateful. Please take care of Maria. Sure, you got it. Then, I guess this is good night, Aunt Rosa. Then, I'll see them over there and return here. Yes, please. Aunt Rosa watched us leave. Maria, sorry for everything. Rose's mumbling voice didn't reach the person in question, nor any of the kids, but disappeared with the sound of the rain. Go away! Fuck off, email. Fuck off. After cutting through the rainy rose garden, we arrived at the guest house. If only I applied for the position of Maria carrier, then I would have gotten a chance to have Shannon's huge boobs running all over my arm. That's not why I did it. It's a misunderstanding.
I thought that if I didn't walk like this, George would get all wet.
Come on! Quit babbling and go in! After being urged on by Jessica, we folded up our umbrellas and went to the guest house.
Has anyone gotten their clothes wet? I can bring some towels if you want.
You don't need to worry about us that much. Thanks, Shannon. That's right. We were planning to play cards or something. Would you care to join us for a bit? Huh? Who had the night shift on today's schedule?
I believe we had a special schedule during the family conference. Also, I think a few alterations have been made, so I will go and check.
Wait, if you have to go all the way back to the mansion to find out, don't force yourself.
Oh, that's all right. I can find out from the servant room in the guest house. Please excuse me for a short while.
Shannon gave a quick bow and went to the guest house service room. The rest of us headed for the cousin's room and decided to put Maria to bed for the time being. Maria is sleeping very deeply, and there was absolutely no sign of her eyes opening. For now, we'd get some soft drinks out from the room's refrigerator and drink those while playing cards or something.
Oh, Hannah? And you're here too, Genji. What has happened with tonight's shift?
Cross has given an order. You made some sizable changes to the shift schedule. Indeed. Goda now has the night shift of the mansion. Shannon and Kanon have the night shift in the guest house. And Masawa and I have been ordered to sleep in the guest house. Just now a phone call came, saying that once you arrive, you are also to remain here for the rest of the night.
Huh? That certainly is a sizable change. The shifts of the guest house and the mansion have been completely reversed, haven't they?
Originally, Shannon and Kanon had been assigned the night shift in the mansion, while the night shift in the guest house, where all the relatives were staying, had been assigned to Goda, who had an abundance of experience in entertaining. Kumasawa should have been sleeping in the guest house, while Genji should have been sleeping in the mansion. However, it seemed that Cross had suddenly ordered the schedule be modified. The shifts of the guest house and the mansion had all been reversed, and Genji was spending the night in the guest house. It's probably because of Beatrice's letter.
Why probably?
After such a mysterious letter appeared, it's only natural that Kraus would suspect one of us. We served directly under the master, so Kraus tried as best as he could to keep us far away from the family conference. Genji, Shannon, and Kanon were all permitted to wear the Ushiromiya family crest, the one-winged eagle, as the servants who served directly under Kinzo. Of course, since they were working for the Ushiromiya family, they had to obey anyone's orders, but their only boss was Kinzo. Since only Kinzo had held the right to employ them, even Kraus could not have dismissed of his own accord. Because of this, Kraus and the others often viewed these servants as Kinzo's underlings and shunned them. And in fact, Kinzo seldom let anyone other than them enter his study. This sudden shift change was probably a clear expression of the sense of mistrust that had caused. Considering the time Kinzo had left to live, this would definitely be the last family conference before the problem of the inheritance came up. On top of that, the mysterious letter that had claimed to be from the Beatrice had dropped out of the blue. Kraus definitely wanted to keep Kinzo's loyal subjects away from the table of such a delicate and important discussion. If you will excuse me, I will go rest. If anything happens, call me immediately. Our guest tonight is a special case, after all.
Yes, certainly, Genji.
Genji nodded back and went behind a screen and took off his jacket. Slowly began to relax after a day's worth of tension. The ones who just returned now, were they the children?
Yes. The other relatives are having a conference in the mansion. It looked like it would drag on for quite some time.
Then we got it easy. It's already this late and there's this weather. The rest of the relatives will probably spend the night in their rooms in the mansion.
Yes, probably. I'm only saying this because Genji isn't around. But I'm a little happy I was sent to the guest house, I guess.
Oh, why's that? Because you can stay away from Madame and Ava, those bullies. And you have another reason.
It's not as though I have another reason.
I see. Then let us do our best together with our night shift. I'm counting on you, Nathan.
Just now I was asked to go to the children's room and play with them.
Shannon hung her head apologetically, gazing at Canon uncertainly. Canon didn't try to meet her eyes and spoke curtly as he sighed. It looked like he didn't plan on indulging his sister. You can't. You were assigned to the night shift. Besides, which it isn't necessary for furniture like us to respond to an invitation to play. You understand, right?
Yes, I do understand.
Shannon's shoulder drooped slightly. She already expected that Canon, a stickler for rules, would say something like that, but she still seemed a little discouraged. As Canon flipped through the logbook, he spoke without facing Shannon. That means the children will be waiting for you. You'll have to apologize and tell them you have the night shift and won't be able to stay with them. Go and come back.
Yes! I'll go apologize and come back.
Shannon hurriedly stood from her seat before her brother's mood could change and flew out of the servant room after giving a quick bow. As he watched her go, Canon took a single deep breath. Genji's voice came from beyond the screen. Canon, I will be here so you can go too. Genji, Shannon was the only one who called. It's not as though I was invited. That is only because you were not there at the time. If you had been, you would have been invited as well. It's good for you to play as a child from time to time. No, such a thing is not necessary for me. Human children may have a need to play, but we are furniture. Is that so? Nei-san is also furniture. Even if she pretends to be a person, it'll only hurt her later. I understand that, so I try not to get close to people, that's all. Genji did not say anything after that. After a while, he stood up and used a pot of hot water to make powdered cocoa, and served some to Canon as well. I mean, it makes sense to say with the own sound, because me-own, she-own, okay? And they both have the same character, okay? Like, both have the same Chinese character, so. Okay. Is that for real? I had no clue! Dumbass, you're too loud! You'll wake Maria up! Bowler was so surprised that he yelled obnoxiously and scattered his cards everywhere. His voice caused Maria to turn over, but she soon fell back into a deep sleep. Jessica gave him a jab, and he lowered his voice. Still, seriously, now that you mentioned it, they really did have that kind of atmosphere, didn't they? Now I see. So George couldn't be seen anywhere in the room. A short while ago, when Shannon came into the room, George suddenly said he'd forgotten something in the mansion and needed to go back to get it. Shannon said that she would guide him, just like she had on the way to the guest house. The two of them departed together. Well, there actually has been signs of it for a while now. You know, questions about hobbies and favorite things. I always thought it was a bit much for a passing interest. And look what's happened now. Come to think of it, I get the feeling George has always been overly nice to Shannon. Now I get it. Ugh. According to the weather report, it looks like it'll be its worst tonight. It also seems like it'll last all day tomorrow, though it should get a little better.
Really? Then maybe the boat won't arrive until the day after tomorrow. I hope that doesn't interfere with your work on Monday.
I already knew the typhoon would be coming beforehand. Just in case, I made sure I didn't have any plans for Monday, so it's okay. I may not look it, but I really am the type who can plan ahead in the schedule. George puffed out his cheek, acting proud. Chest. Sorry. Compared to the calm appearance, George had always been the oldest cousin. Now, he looked amusingly like a little kid. Shannon chuckled at this abrupt contrast.
It's no surprise that you're so well prepared, as someone who will bring prosperity to this company someday.
Well, making a company prosper really is a tough job. Money isn't the only thing that's important. I learned that well when studying under my father. Making a company prosper is like owning a castle and leading your subordinates. My dad really loves reading about great leaders during the warring periods of Japan, a hobby that's probably influenced by the fact that he shares Toyotomi Hideyoshi's name. I messed up, I'm sorry, my bad. Much of his philosophy on managing businesses comes from talking about them. Did you know? Takeda Shingen, who was feared as the leader of the strongest cavalry corps in the warring period, started out with his troops in complete disarray and didn't have that kind of strong leadership necessary to utilize them well.
Is that true? That's a little unexpected.
In order to unite his troops, Shingen showed his excellent leadership in many ways. For example, when a soldier succeeded well in battle, he would immediately honor them with a medal. Normally, that kind of thing was put off until after the war, and they were all rewarded at once. He continued this diligently while on the field of battle, and immediately showed his appreciation for his troops' military exploits motivated them in extremely significant fashion. Also, whenever one of his troops was brought down by an illness, he would be the first to rush up to them and care for them, and so on. Takeda Shingen wasn't just the man who led the strongest cavalry corps in the warring period. He was the person who cared most for his troops throughout the warring period.
And because he was that kind of person, all of his troops went along with him.
The truth was, Shannon had already heard this story several years ago. Mansplaining! I don't ship them, that's why I'm sorry. Whenever a discussion of his father went to this sort of topic, George would always glow and look like he was having a great time. So Shannon just smiled without interrupting, urging him to continue. Of course, in the capitalist world, money determines both your strength and the height of your fortifications. But you can't build up a castle or succeed in war by yourself. Such things can only be accomplished with the support of many subordinates by borrowing their strength. Nobody does it by themselves! Sorry, I just had to point that out. Because, people run the world. After understanding this, when I look at my father's back, I realize how immature I am. I can clearly see how much competition he had to overcome before building up all he has now.
George, you truly look up to your father. I'm jealous.
Sorry, that's not how I meant it.
I'm sorry, that's not how I meant it either.
The two of them awkwardly looked at their feet. Shannon had no parents. She had been brought up in an orphanage owned by Kinzo called the Fukuin House. Under the guidance of Kinzo, their honorary director, the orphanage offered members who excelled had a chance for the job of serving experience. If their efforts met Kinzo's approval, they'd be able to leave the orphanage and work as servants for the Ushimiya family. This was considered to be the highest honor for those who lived in the orphanage. Servants from the Fukuin House all took the names of the character owned in them when they served. See sound. So Shannon wasn't her real name. The same went for Kano. All the members of the Fukuin House were orphans. At least they were all people who had been separated from their parents under special circumstances. Because of this, the orphans had been taught to think of each other as their only family. That's why it seemed so natural for the both of them, and Kano called Shannon his sister. While both Kano and Shannon were working in the mansion today, there were several other servants possessing the own character in their names, such as Manon and Lennon, who often worked as a rotation schedule. Oh, okay, so they decided to do that instead of Reno. Okay. However, there are not many servants who stayed with the Ushimiya family for long. It was standard for them to quit after 3 years. So you could probably say that Shannon, who had been working for 10 years, was a notable exception to the rule. Working as a servant for the Ushimiya family was a heavy burden to bear, but the pay wasn't bad at all. Working for a full 3 years would earn more than what was needed to enter mainstream society. That was why, even though the orphans realized what a harsh task working for the Ushimiya family was, they still hoped to be accepted. Maybe the fact that Shannon managed to continue working for 10 years wasn't because she had more willpower than the other servants. Maybe she'd gotten stuck working for 10 years years because she didn't have the courage to say she wanted to quit. So she's been working for 10 years, and she's like 16. Or something? I forget. Wait, how old is George? Isn't he like 23? Kinzo couldn't even trust his own blood relatives, and those excellent servants sent from the Fukuin house were the only ones he could rely on. Because of that, Kinzo would sometimes allow them to wear the family crest, as servants under his direct control, and have them work close to him. You've been working here for almost 10 years now, right? You must have saved a lot of money by now.
I wonder. It's not like there's anything particular I'd like to buy. After all, a few million yen isn't enough to live off of for the rest of your life.
So the reason you've been working all this time wasn't to hit some target sum?
Yes, that's right. I had nowhere to go outside this mansion. And I've been getting along well with Milady and the other young servants. The madame does scold me sometimes, but caring for the rose garden and cleaning the mansion is fun.
But that'd be your entire life, Shano. No, Sayo. Shannon cast her eyes downwards when she heard her real name. She understood what George was trying to say and fell silent. For the sake of, not making things confusing, I will use honorifics. For once.
There's something I learned as I continue to study even after becoming an adult and a full-fledged member of society. A human's life is not as monotonous or sure as we thought when we were kids. All school-age kids have certain fears they can't shake. They wonder whether they'll live for the rest of their lives as sleepy classes after a monotonous and boring school day, spending their time in a carefree laziness without anything interesting happening until it's all over. However, life's only like that for underage students. Compared to a human's life, the time they spent as students is nothing more than a blink of an eye, a period where they break through the shells of their immaturity. I wish I could do that really soon, right now. The inside of the shell might be a hot, suffocating, boring world. The world beyond that shell is vast and filled with limitless possibilities. So far, your life's been trapped inside the shell called Channel. I think you're under the mistaken impression that your life will continue like this forever. Shannon couldn't deny those words. She'd been unable to harbor any clear doubts of her lifestyle. And since she never had any hopes or goals for changing herself, she lazily continued living the way she always had. And if asked whether this life was satisfying, she wouldn't have been able to nod. She may have intentionally averted her eyes from the truth. Without George's admonishments, she would have continued pretending not to notice as her real life slipped away bit by bit, neglected. George-sama, is it wrong for me to continue living this way?
Yeah, it is. Oh, and by the way, didn't you break one of our rules just now? George immediately gave a strict answer and broke out into a mischievous smile. Shannon already knew what she was being chided for, as she hung her head again, apparently embarrassed. Didn't you promise not to use Sama when the two of us are alone?
I couldn't obey that as a promise, but if it was an order, I would have to obey it, because I'm furniture.
Then it's an order.
Yes, certainly. George?
As Shannon hung her head, her face red, she said George's name again, and this time it falling, it was San. Sorry, I ignored that part. Yes, that's fine, Sayo. George smiled at Shannon, no, Sayo, to praise her small act of bravery. This short exchange alone made it clear how far back their relationship must have stretched. For a long while, the two talked as if the weather raging about them didn't even enter their thoughts. They talked about how many memories they built during their relationship that no one else knew about. Every once in a while, a flash of lightning would attempt to interrupt them. But this could sully neither the roses nor the time they spent blushing at each other. Okay. That's right. I have something I want to show you.
What could it be?
George, who had been speaking eloquently, suddenly started to stutter. Watching him, Shannon seemed to guess something. George timidly searched through his pockets. Something got caught in the depths of his pockets, and just like the stuttering George, it took a while to get it out.
It was a very small box. A small box covered in deep blue velvet. That peculiar shape was enough to tell anyone what was resting inside. Shannon had prepared her heart somewhat, certain beforehand that this was what he had been planning. But even so, when she actually saw it, she couldn't avoid blushing once more. George opened the small box, took something out, and held out for Shannon to take. "I want you to take this." I couldn't possibly accept something so valuable. "You can't take it?" No. I'm unworthy of such a thing." "Sayo, this isn't a request. It's an order. Take this ring. Okay?" If it's an order, I cannot disobey." "Yeah, that's right. Well done." Shannon, not wanting to show her bright red face, timidly accepted the ring from George's hand while still staring at the ground. That ring wasn't a simple accessory. It was a noble object since ancient times, meant to be offered to a special woman under special circumstances. Therefore, while George could order her to take it, he could not order anything beyond that. Anything beyond that would depend not on an order, but on Shannon, no Sayo's own will. "So, from here on, I'm not ordering you anymore. Sayo, I want you to give me your answer by tomorrow without using words. Do you understand?" How should I won't order you any further, so this isn't an order. But a ring is something that you put on your finger after all. If you like it, you can put it on any finger you chose. Shannon had only pretended not to know. She already understood what he wanted her to do. But she was standing at a huge crossroads of her life. "Look how late it's gotten. Let's call it a day." George turned away from Shannon, acting just a bit bluntly. "I could probably order you to wear it on your left hand. You might be timid and dependent enough to actually obey that kind of an order. But I want at least this last step to be done by your own will, Sayo. Understand?" Yes. "So, that's my order. I want you to think about it well and tonight, and show me your answer tomorrow." Shannon nodded back. Today was the accumulation of their many days spent together. This moment certainly hadn't come as a surprise to Shannon. "We should be getting back to the guest house soon. If we take any longer, we'll make everyone worry about us." "Oh, I'm sorry, I just remembered something I had to do in the mansion, so, I have to go back to the mansion." "At a time like this? Is that true?" George stared into Shannon's face as he laughed mischievously. He definitely saw through Shannon's lie. However, when he saw how she felt, he could sort of understand she might be so embarrassed that she want to be alone. So because George realized the meaning behind Shannon's lie, he accepted it. And we're going to keep reading. Shannon entered the entrance hall to the mansion with a tottering gait. A mixture of exultation and uncertainty gave her a feeling that she couldn't easily describe. It swelled up in her chest until she felt like she was about to burst. After stopping for a second in front of the servant room to take a deep breath and calm her heart, she opened the door. Inside, Goda, who had been ordered to take the midnight shift at the mansion tonight, was absorbed in a worn-out crossword puzzle magazine. He looked up for an instant to see if one of the family had come in, but he realized it was a fellow servant. He returned to his puzzle as if nothing happened. Genji told me to come and help you. Ah, is that so? That's a relief. I was just about to go and check the mansion was fully locked up, but I felt uneasy about leaving this room unmanned. After all, crossing the others' meeting looks as though it will continue for quite some time. They might request some tea at any moment. That's true. Then, what shall we do? Should I watch over? In that case, forgive me, Shannon, but I ask that you patrol the mansion. I'll stay here awaiting the family's orders. You lazy! Yes. Shannon was slightly disgusted. Even though she'd come here to help out as a favor, she was being casually forced to do the job of the person actually on duty. Fuck Goda. I'm just kidding. His only redeeming quality is cooking. Furthermore, after one-sidedly forcing that task on her, Goda returned to his magazine once again and became immersed in his crossword puzzle. Shannon bowed her head as a token sign of respect for her elder and left the room to patrol the mansion. Thanks to her being a bit ticked off, she managed to suppress that floaty feeling that she had been having until just now. And anyway, she couldn't let Genji or Kano see her looking like this. She wanted a little time to herself until her heart calmed down, so maybe going on patrol wouldn't be so bad. She began to hear the tumultuous voices of the family discussion coming from the dining hall. Someone was speaking at a great length, only to be interrupted by someone else. The second person also began to speak in a very long, drawn-out fashion, and yet another person interrupted. That kept on repeating. It was as though their displeasure was seeping out through their voices. She'd been told to go to the guest house, so it'd be bad if Cross discovered her. Thinking this, Shannon dashed past the dining hall. Then she went along the pre-arranged route through the dark mansion, checking all the locks were secure. She walked down the hall, checking each window. There were no humans on Rokinjima other than those connected to the family, so locking up didn't really serve much of a purpose. No one had been in the habit of locking up the Ushiramiya head family, at least not until Natsuya had scolded them for being careless. Oops, at locking up at the... Sorry. The metal fixtures on the windows were ice cold, and as she checked them one by one, the glow in her heart seemed to cool down. At that time, she thought she saw something twinkling across the hall. Twinkling? How could anything be twinkling through the darkness of the hall? She figured she must have been imagining it, but she still held her breath. Grasping at a curtain, she fearfully gazed down the hall. However, other than an occasional crack of thunder brightening the hallway, she was unable to glimpse any flicker again. It must have been her imagination after all. Maybe her heart was so agitated she must have seen something that didn't even exist. Shannon went back to checking the windows. However, a certain unnerving memory was resurrected in the back of her mind. It was that ghost story, which had been passed down amongst the servants who served the Ushiramiya head family. The mansion had two different masters, one of the day and one of the night. Beatrice, the master of the night, would sometimes fly around the mansion in the form of sparkling butterfly. That was the story. Come to think of it, didn't Cannon once say he'd seen it with his own eyes? Though he got sulky when I said he must have imagined it and refused to believe him. Could it possibly be true? The roar of the thunder gave no answer.
second day, October 5th, 1986. I'll just read that last part and then we're gonna go. Alright, we're done tonight. Yep. And anything else? Any other tips? No. Okay. Alright, gonna end here. Good night.